We're going to talk today about why experts and critics are often wrong. People are often stopped from being all they can be by those arguing for the traditional ways. And we also tend to put more faith in experts than in ourselves. Don't let yourself be one of them. Be careful to whom you listen when making decisions. Because who says it has to be that way? The world is full of experts who know it all and love to say it can't be done. Yet most of the things I've done in my life, I've been told can't be done. When I was making wedding candles in my basement, I was told, "You'll never get anywhere with that." I ended up selling to over 6,000 stores. And when I started painting at age 30, I was told, "No, you need to go to art school if you want to become a good artist." Yet I ended up selling at national art shows. When I came up with the idea of letting people dip their own candles in my business, in the pole barn out in the woods outside a small northern Minnesota town of only 3,300 people, the townsfolk was saying, "She's really crazy. Who's going to drive 10 miles out in the country to do that?" Yet so many people did, it led to the idea for the village of the Smoky Hills. And then when I came up with the idea for building the village, everyone said, "It can't be done in such a short time." But it was, in only 5 weeks and 5 days, from the day we broke ground to the day we opened. When I then decided to produce a documentary on the incredible story of the founding mothers, I was told that without a background in filmmaking, it would be impossible to produce a quality film. Yet public television has shown 5 weeks and 5 days several times, and it's been chosen for film festivals. So oftentimes experts do a disservice to people by telling you why you can't do things rather than why you can. Now, following business plans given to you by experts can also sometimes be a detriment. The founding mothers succeeded because we were so focused that we never got sidetracked by conventional business thinking, which can stifle innovation. In the documentary on the building of the village, 5 weeks and 5 days, founding mother Flo Hadeen talks about the revelation that she had if we had followed a conventional business plan. If we had, we would not even have considered building a village. And this is what she said. I had the privilege of speaking at some small business seminars. As I looked at the business plans being presented, I became more and more convinced that if we had had that information, the village would not be here today. There would have been things, absolutely, that it would have been very helpful to know. But if it kills off spirit and it kills off the going ahead with a new possible idea, then I question the value of it. The founding mothers leveraged what was good to do in planning, business projections, and sloughed off anything that didn't fit our vision. I remember when the chairman of Sony said that he didn't believe in doing market surveys. He continued by saying that if Sony had done a market survey on the concept of a Walkman, there wouldn't have been one because it was a totally new concept. Who ever heard of walking with your music? He went with his gut instinct instead, which said that this would be very popular with the burgeoning physical fitness crowd, even though he knew that marketing experts would not see its viability. Now, not listening to experts can extend to all areas of life, not just for those in business. A wonderful example of breaking the mold by refusing to believe the experts is the shattering of the 4 Minute Mile by 25-year-old Roger Bannister in 1954. Running a mile in under 4 minutes was considered not only impossible, but dangerous to the health of any athlete who attempted to do it. When he crossed the finish line with a time of 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds, he broke through a psychological barrier as well. As soon as Bannister did it, the 4 minute barrier was broken by many athletes because they now knew it was possible. In the last 50 years, the mile record has been lowered by an astounding 17 seconds. In 1994, a 41-year-old Irish runner became the first man over the age of 40 to run a sub 4-minute mile. So much for the "you're getting too old to do that" experts. Remember how in one of the first courses we talked about the three myths that women tell themselves, one of which was not having enough training? Well, I have an interesting story for you. If you think that those with degrees should be held on a pedestal, one of my favorite news articles disparaging that notion was written by respected columnist Dick Youngblood, who wrote for the Minneapolis Star Tribune. He said that the initials MBA, rather than meaning Masters in Business Administration, should really stand for maybe better avoided. Dick told the story about how experienced people in industry were replaced with new young MBAs straight out of college because the degree became more important than experience. He said that because these MBAs hadn't worked their way up in each industry, they didn't have a clue about actual production management. Dick's claim was that these MBAs brought big companies like Xerox, General Motors, Westinghouse almost to their knees. The lesson here should be that while a degree can definitely be useful, a degree without experience, common sense, vision can also cause great discord. Being stopped from doing something because of listening to an expert happened to me on a personal level as well. When I was growing up, I wanted to be an artist and went to college with the idea of majoring in art. However, the first art professor I had as a freshman took me aside one day and said, "Look, you just don't have it. Find something else to major in." I was 18, and to have a professor say that to me was akin to God coming down from the mountain. So I took the word of this expert, set aside my art supplies, and switched my major to political science. I did not paint again for 12 years. When I was 30, however, I began meditation. After a year, I had such a strong need to paint, I thought I was going to explode. These were my first paintings. I had that kind of talent inside of me, yet for over a decade I didn't pick up a paintbrush because an expert told me I had no talent. This first painting is of a grandmother and child, and the third painting I did was of a mother and a child. Unfortunately, this art expert had confused ignorance with lack of talent. For 12 years, I had gone to tiny schools that had no art programs. I didn't know techniques of watercolors or acrylics or oil paints like students who had gone to larger schools and had had art classes from fifth grade on. Just as unfortunately, however, I believed his expert assessment of my supposed lack of talent and quit painting. Women in business, particularly, need to learn to stay determined to follow their instincts when, say, something has to be done a certain way. Don't let yourself get stopped by a barrier imposed by society of the argument that's not how it's traditionally done. Now, here's a humorous story about how traditions begin. Remember this story if the traditions argument is used against you. Here's the story. The bride and groom were having their families over for Easter dinner, and she started to fix the ham while the groom, being a modern man, was peeling the potatoes. He said, "Honey, why did you cut the ends off the ham?" And she said, "Well, that's the way Mama always does it." So they went to find her mother, who said, "Grandma always fixes the ham that way." When they asked Grandma why she cuts the end off the ham, she said, "Because I have a very small roasting pan." Wow! Another ingrained tradition for future generations. a tradition that started for a reason that no longer exists, much like the reasons why women shouldn't be in a particular business or in a non traditional role that no longer exists. Unfortunately, ingrained attitudes, which lead to great prejudice, are hard to get rid of. And here are just two examples. Number one, women still earn only 82 cents for every dollar that men earn for the same job. And number two, this is an interesting story. Before the Winter Olympics in the 1990s, Lindsey Vann, a woman, held the world ski jumping record, even over the ones held by men. Yet women were barred from ski jumping in the Olympics. Yep, it seems like the guys thought it'd interfere with their uteruses. International Olympic Committee President Jacques Roguet maintained his dusty old sexist "protect the little ladies" attitude for years as his justification for keeping women from competing. Another male Olympic member agreed, saying he didn't think women should ski jump because the sport, quote, seems not to be appropriate for ladies from a medical point of view, unquote, which, by the way, has no medical basis in fact. The British Supreme Court ruled that this was definitely gender discrimination, but it had no jurisdiction in the matter. The Olympic Committee then, to cover itself, issued the statement that women's ski jumping does not reach the necessary technical criteria and as such does not yet warrant a place alongside other Olympic events. Right. That shows really great enlightened minds of the 16th century. I personally feel that it had more to do with them thinking how humiliating it would be for a woman to jump the farthest with the world watching. And by the way, women weren't allowed to ski jump in the Olympics until 2014. That's why I dearly love this famous Teddy Roosevelt quote about critics and naysayers. And by the way, I'll give you a written copy so you don't have to copy this down while I say it. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, because there is not effort without error and shortcomings. But who does actually strive to do the deed? Who knows the great enthusiasm, the great devotion, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who, at the best, knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Well, I sincerely hope that this session has given you a lot to think about and a lot of information that will help strengthen your backbone as you go forward into the new areas of your life. Because it's such an exciting thing if you can just not pay attention to the naysayers.